And the Karen Reed murder trial heading to Netflix. The streaming service announced a new 3-part documentary on the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Now, the series, which does not have a title yet, will explore what happened in the days leading up to O'Keefe's death. It is currently in production. Right now, no word on a release date.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay. How is everybody? Wanted to talk to you today about Karen Reed being the puppet master and her relationship with John O'Keefe as a DV relationship. We often think of these relationships as the woman being the victim, but in this case, I'm going to make the argument that Karen Reed is a toxic and dangerous woman in a relationship, and this followed a natural progression to ultimately the end of the ultimate sign of power and control with a psychopath, which I believe Karen Reed is I decide who lives and dies. I decide. I'm going to erase you from the face of the earth. You're going to no longer matter. You're going to be gone. I'm victorious. I win because you don't leave me. No one leaves me, right? If I can't have you, no one can have you. And when she called John O'Keefe and said, "I hate you," people don't understand. Why is Karen Reed, who's so incredibly calculating, that she'd make her own evidence? She loves to do that. Go to the crime scene, pick up her marks, Carrie and Jen. Act hysterical, get them to call 911, call John O'Keefe on the phone, record her own evidence. Hysterical. So she knows that, it was a shocker. She knows right where to look for him, but it was a shocker. She has it on recording. She loves, just like Aidan Carney, she loves to have back up her tactical and fantastical stories with evidence, photos, audio. And she made her own audio of being hysterical. So why, the question people ask, especially on the other side of this, is why would Karen Reed, right after she knowingly kills John O'Keefe, why would she call him and say, "I hate you, you're a pervert"? Because yes, she is very calculating, but she's also incredibly impulsive, as murderers are, because they know that they're good, they're master manipulators, and she's gotten out of it so far. She knows that she can manipulate her way out of it, out of her impulsive mistakes. Does that make sense, everybody? So you can be both. You can be incredibly manipulative and scheming and planning. And you can also be incredibly impulsive, which I think Karen Reed was. I think that's how she really felt towards John O'Keefe at that time. And that was her ultimate expression of it. It's almost like, look what you made me do. I hate you. Look what you made me do. You made me run you over if you weren't so awful to me. And when she was asked, in trial, walking out of court, did you love John O'Keefe? Oh, no, we were in a relationship for 2 years. We were dating. I didn't love him. That's what she was saying. She wants everyone to know everything about this Innocence fraud campaign that she spearheaded is about how much she hates him. And that's why I believe this is a second-degree murder charge. I mean, you got to take into consideration that her foot was 74.5% down on the pedal. Let's round it up, shall we? To 75% down, can we? Going backwards where she has automatic braking, she never brakes. She tells her parents, I think I hit something. She tells everyone on the scene, I think I hit him. Could I have hit him? She's bringing it into the realm of possibilities. She also has the beeping thing on her car going backwards. So she would have been alerted. It would have gone beep, 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 beep. Faster, 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 closer, closer, closer. Impact. She doesn't know. She thinks she hit a mailbox. She doesn't know. She went back to John O'Keefe's house, like I said before, like a burglar. Instead of going back to her own house in Mansfield, the house that she's selling. She had no right to be there, really. And schemed and planned how she was going to get out of this. One of the plans was to pretend to be crazy so she didn't have to talk to the cops, pretend she was going to end it all. But let's look at some of the elements she used. Triangulation with the O'Keefe family. I want to talk about that. And also I want to talk about her text messages that she text messaged John O'Keefe between around 9:30, between around 9:20 and 3 p.m. She called him 18 times. John O'Keefe rejected the calls 11 times, missed it 4 times, and only answered 3 times. And if you look at their text messages, he's like, stop calling me. Later. I don't want to deal with it. And if you go back to my episode where I did just about the text messages, they're like, later. And she's constantly writing her own evidence. You treated me so badly. And at the same time, gaslighting John O'Keefe. I'm doing everything I can do. You're setting me up to fail. I feel like, let's get into some of these. I mean, she says, I'm trying to hug and kiss you this morning and you whack me in the face with a pillow. She wrote that to him at 2:29. And he said it didn't go down exactly like that. And said, last night you were basically like, yeah, what about when we want to talk about the future? So why don't you admit it? You're just not into it anymore. And at 2:30, this is a text message, it's stuck in my brain, burned in my brain. At 2:30, 26 seconds, John O'Keefe writes back, not how it went down, but okay. So is she setting up sort of like, I was a victim in this? Or what are these text messages about? This is what I've wondered. Was she setting up some kind of like, look, I was a victim of a really, really hard to deal with guy. He hit me in the face with a pillow. It was awful to me. And she said at 2:32, she says, can you please admit your head is out of the game with us? And John O'Keefe writes, sick of always arguing and fighting. It's been weekly for several months now. So yeah, I'm not as quick to jump back in and be lovey-dovey as you, apparently. And then he rejects another call from her. And then he texts her, OMG, stop calling. So this is something abusive people do. They text bomb you. It's a form of stalking. Calling incessantly, texting incessantly won't give him a minute of rest, a minute of freedom, any kind of space is really what I'm saying. And Karen Reed says, you're setting me up to fail. Such a narcissistic comment. I don't fail. I only fail because you make me fail. And then she says at 2:33, you start a number of fights from your end. And John O'Keefe says, I've explained it a few times already, not doing it again. Not into fighting all the time, correct. And she lives to fight. She lives to fight because she knows that John O'Keefe is a pretty easygoing guy, that she can keep power and control out of keeping him in fear of her temper. And Karen Reed with some projection. Here she is texting and kissing Brian Higgins. If you tell me you're interested in someone else, you'll never hear from me again. You can have all the space in the world. And John O'Keefe replies with a blank message. And Karen Reed says, then stop starting with me. It's you're doing it. There's a little more gaslighting. You're doing it. But one of the more interesting conversations is her conversation with Aaron O'Keefe, when Aaron O'Keefe was waiting at the bus stop for one of her children. Let's listen to her testimony, shall we? So this is some triangulation. Remember that Aaron and Paul O'Keefe had nothing but good things to say about Karen Reed on the stand. So Karen Reed's going to call and say, here we go. Can you guys see it?
Something was up, and she responded and said, just another day, I wish I didn't talk to an O'Keefe after 2004.
And how did you respond to that?
I said, what happened? What's going on? And they had bickered, I guess, about her taking Kaylee to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning before school.
Right. So that is Karen Reed's version. And we've accepted that as true, that it was a fight over breakfast, because unfortunately, John O'Keefe isn't alive to tell us what really happened. But here she is. So triangulation, something narcissists do to keep power and control by essentially, it is what it sounds like. You're triangulating, meaning you're putting yourself in between two people. So she's talking to Aaron about John, and in that way you can control everyone. You talk badly, and you create discord between everyone. So the other one, so Aaron may have thought that John O'Keefe may have been responsible for a lot of this. It's extremely toxic. So if you think of abuse as a step, so I was taught by Gavin DeBecker's company a long time ago, not even that long ago, maybe 15 years ago. And his idea, he's a security expert, and his idea is that these escalate, these tactics escalate. So they can start with breaking of your things, breaking of symbolic objects, tearing up pictures, verbal abuse, stalking. And by the time you get to stalking, and I would call this a form of stalking, you're already halfway up the red flag. And at the end of the abusive spectrum, like where that behavior ends, if it keeps escalating, is in murder. So spare me she didn't know what she was doing. She was so drunk. We have the testimony that the alcohol, it seems to not even hit the sides with her, touch the sides. And let's look at Kurt Roberts. He says similarly that the alcohol consumption by 10 p.m. seemed to have no effect on her, and she's having drink after drink. Let's take a listen, shall we?
Now, you noticed on the video, one of the last videos that Mr. Lally played for you, that prior to your making the Irish exit there, you did have some interaction with Karen Reed, correct?
I believe so at the end.
You saw that the two of you were at one point face to face.
I did for a brief.
Yes, it was maybe 10 or 20 seconds.
Okay.
Does that sound fair?
It does.
And when you were face to face, you were looking at her and she was looking at you, correct?
Yes.
And there was some type of interchange between the two of you?
Maybe I was saying bye. I don't recall. I don't
You
know.
probably don't remember the specifics of
No, I
what
don't.
the conversation was, but there appeared to be some type of small conversation.
I saw her from the video. Yes.
And while you were speaking to her, you had no indication that she was slurring her words in any way, correct?
I didn't think so. No.
No. Her eyes didn't appear to be bloodshot and glassy, correct?
Correct.
She wasn't swaying or stumbling in any way, correct?
Correct.
She didn't appear to be confused in her thinking or her speech.
She did not.
She appeared to be normal, correct?
Yes.
There was nothing about her demeanor or her interaction with you that would lead you to believe that she was under the influence of alcohol at that time.
No, not.
Right. There we go again. And when in that morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, she's around police officers. No one says, oh, she was so drunk. She could barely stand up. She was weaving. She seemed drunk, and they're trained to look for it. Is any of this? She seemed to have a real amazing capacity for alcohol. So spare me this argument that she was so drunk, she didn't know what she was doing, she didn't know what she was hit. Manslaughter. She didn't know she abandoned him. Spare me that. Now, there's been some issues with the jurors saying they're afraid of both the Free Karen Reed crowd and the non-Free Karen Reed crowd. And he or she wants to be protected. And that's how it seems like Karen Reed's personality has colored this entire story, an entire trial on both ends. I'm going to take a quick break. When I get back from the break, we're going to talk some more, about Karen Reed and her plumber. Big red flag with the plumber. The plumber she desperately needed to come over, but maybe didn't. When we get back from the break, don't go anywhere. I'll see you in 36 seconds. If you are enjoying this episode of my True Crime Report, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share this episode. Get access to exclusive podcasts and other bonus content by becoming a patron today. If you have a question or comment for me, shoot me a super chat and I'll do my best to answer it and read it on air. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. So one of the things that's really not talked about is Karen Reed's communication with John O'Keefe about her plumber. And did this plumber ever come? Did he ever exist? Was he a figment of Karen Reed's imagination to make John O'Keefe feel jealous and to make John O'Keefe feel like she understood somehow she was moving on from the relationship? She had decided, not John, she's going to decide when it ends. And she no longer needed John O'Keefe and John O'Keefe's father, because John O'Keefe's father was a plumber. And she says, oh, like, I don't know if I can come out tonight, waiting for this plumber. And John O'Keefe says, well, if you had waited, if you can wait till Monday, well, I'll have Papa look at it. Why didn't you ask me to do it? And she's like, well, I didn't want to bother you with that. And so where are these text messages? So this is a really good point that Innocence Fraud Watch brought up. Why were text messages between Richie, the Mansfield plumber, who was due to return to 48 Gill Street on 2002, hidden? So Karen Reed had told John O'Keefe at around 7:25 on Friday, the 28th of January, that Richie, the plumber, who apparently lived right down the road from her in Mansfield, was due to visit her at her house to look at a problem with her hot water. She had apparently texted Richie earlier in the day, and he meant to arrive at 5 p.m. She never mentioned anything about this to John O'Keefe until he was heading to C.F. McCarthy's. And Richie, however, didn't arrive apparently until sometime after 7:42 and before 7:55, because she's like, I'm still with the plumber. So Richie was apparently to replace a part the following day, which Karen Reed had described to John O'Keefe at around 8:26, whilst he was at C.F. McCarthy's pub with Michael Camerano, as rusted. What time did Karen Reed first contact Richie? So people are like, well, what's the import of that? The import of it is that she's at her house, right, in Mansfield, saying, I no longer need you. I'm going to deal with my hot water problems on my own. I already texted someone to take a look, and that's why I can't join you. And until John says, I'll do it, just come out. She really wants an invitation. She's begging for an invitation here. If it's not a quick fix, I'll tell him to forget it. She says, I've always told you I will not put either of you out of your way, the way everyone else in your life does. See, I'm so good. I know it wasn't working right when you were at the doctor's with Kaylee, and I knew neither of you could get here. And this guy Richie fixed it last time, wherever it was. He was supposed to be here at 5. So this is the first he hears of these plumber problems. And at one point he says, well, I hope your plumber is hot. So it's also to make him jealous that maybe Karen Reed could be off. It's another abusive tactic, off having an affair with the plumber. But this is an example of how we only see a tiny bit of the evidence in this trial. We only hear a snapshot of the evidence in these trials. And eventually, John O'Keefe and his dad say, leave it off till Monday. There's a snowstorm. I thought you'd be staying with me in Canton. But that's certainly not an invitation to go in his house alone after she's killed him and plot how she's going to get away with it there for hours. Wasn't her house. So there's a lot made of the Cancun story where she's screaming F you on first meeting at a woman. But also amongst the dialogue and text message that day is she asked John O'Keefe to friend her on Facebook. And he says, what? You blocked me. You defriended me a year ago and blocked me. So they had a fight a year ago. And Paul O'Keefe talks about another fight that they had. Shall we take a listen to what he says? It's pretty interesting. You guys see this? Okay. Is everyone with me? Is anyone confused? Any questions? Okay. So he recalls an intense fight they had in Cape Cod.
Do you recall meeting the defendant, Ms. Reed?
I believe it was in June of 2020 during COVID.
Based on sort of your understanding, when was that in relation to when they began sort of their relationship?
I think it was in February or March of that same year.
So right around the time that the pandemic caused a sort of general shutdown, correct?
I think so, yes.
Now, as far as you were aware, did you know of any sort of pre-existing relationship or any time that they had dated in the past prior to that February, March of 2020?
I learned that after the fact.
So fair to say during any sort of previous time that they may or may not have dated, you hadn't met Ms. Reed, you weren't aware of her at all?
Correct. I had not met her.
And do you recall sort of where you were or what the circumstances were the first time that you met the defendant?
I believe we were all...
Wait, hold on one second. Let me make sure I have this loaded up correctly. I don't know if it's switched on to something else. I had it all loaded up. I had it all loaded up to skip the annoying Rumble ads.
Now, I
And
know
I
that
think
may
it's
sound weird.
switched to a different thing. Here we go. Thank you.
What if on
Thank you for your patience. Sorry about that.
what if any occasions as far as they're arguing or anything like that did you observe personally yourself?
Yeah, I witnessed. So they had rented a house down in Cape Cod. Say that was summer of 2021. I brought my two daughters down for a couple nights, and I witnessed, one intense fight between the two of them.
And as far as a fight as you're characterizing that, was that anything physical or just verbal?
No, it was a verbal argument.
And what, if anything, was that verbal argument about?
It's hard to recall. I mean, I guess like typical couples fighting. There was alcohol had been involved. I recall her complaining that he wasn't nice to her, or something to that effect, and I was kind of the referee in that entire situation.
Now, when you make reference to alcohol involved, is that one or both?
Both.
Both your brother and the defendant?
Correct.
So there you go. And I don't think alcohol made it better. But here's Paul O'Keefe having to be put in the middle and be the referee between the two of them. And of course, it's Karen Reed again saying, "You're not being very nice to me." So I will take responsibility for none of my behavior, none of it. I would be nice to you if you weren't so awful to me. I'm the victim, and look what she's done with her campaign. Started out with a clip saying she's getting a Netflix special, And of course, people on this side of the fence are saying it's great. We're going to finally hear the truth because it's going to concentrate on how this escalated the days before John O'Keefe's murder, or alleged murder, I guess that's the best way to put it. But Netflix has a terrible track record of innocence fraud documentaries. It's just chock full with one innocence fraud documentary after the next. It's a money-making venture. You think that they purposely, that they're going to have integrity and tell the real story for less money? I'm sure they're telling everyone to get everyone involved. We want to tell both sides of the story, the defense and the prosecution. And then we'll turn around and we get it out. Everyone on this side of the fence will be clipped down to really benign statements, small part pieces. The wife of the CEO, Reed Hastings, she also supported Soros DA's Larry Krasner. He's a DA in Philadelphia. If you don't know, I've talked about this. This is an innocence fraud initiative where they put in prosecutors who are former defense attorneys into give them money, raise basically Soros and George Gascon, who's the DA of California, had this brilliant idea that they'd make a super PAC or a fund and fund all these DAs' campaigns all around America so that so that the defense would have no opposition. So the prosecution would just be another arm of the defense, that there would be no one there representing the victim, no one there representing the people. The prosecutor's sole interest would be with the accused or the convicted. And you just basically have two defense attorneys talking to each other in court. It is the most sinister plot. And Reed Hastings' wife gave, I believe it was, she poured six figures into saving Chesa Boudin's, who was the Weather Underground terrorist son, who finally got recalled. He was one of these people who got Soros money. She funded his campaign. She funded Larry Krasner's campaign. She is fully on board. And so it's no wonder that there's a million documentaries on Netflix that are all about innocent people who got wrongfully convicted and are promoted by the Innocence Project. So I don't have high hopes for this documentary, is what I'm saying. And I would encourage people not to take part in it unless they want to be betrayed and disappointed. And we can go in, if you guys are interested, we can go in a little bit more into the characters behind it. But I just kind of want to leave it at that for today. But I think it's a really not a good development for those that are interested in justice for the John O'Keefe and his family. So one of the more interesting things that hasn't really been talked about is when Michael Camerino and Kurt Roberts decide to leave, and John O'Keefe and Karen Reed move from C.F. McCarthy's to the Waterfall, there's an interesting piece of time that's missing. And I'd just like to ask the question, could this be a time when they are fighting? So what are they doing for 14 minutes when they're across the street from one another, these bars? So they're caught leaving C.F. McCarthy's at 10:40. But they don't enter the Waterfall till 10:54 p.m. So what were they doing? Could they have been fighting? And then when they walk in, a big smile on their face, nobody thinks that, anything's wrong there. John spots Brian Higgins, went straight over to greet him. We can take a look at that video. But right before that, we can catch her toxic behavior at CF McCarthy's. Like, just look how close she is to John O'Keefe's face. Hold on one second. There's no sound on this, guys. Look how aggressive and close and in his face she is. Very similar to her text messages. And then when they get into the bar, they walk in like this, like nothing happened. And could John O'Keefe have been embarrassed for being in a relationship like this? Here he is, a police officer, seasoned police officer in the SA kind of unit. Sorry, I'm talking in euphemisms for YouTube, but could he have been embarrassed and afraid to tell people that he was in this kind of relationship? Because when they walk in, it looks like he's become a really good actor.
I can ask you to pause right there. So, Sergeant, from that particular portion of the video, what, if anything, of significance did you observe occur there?
That portion of video depicts Mr. John O'Keefe walking in with the defendant gesturing to a group of people at the top of the screen, and then Mr. O'Keefe walking over and giving a hug to an individual that's part of the group.
So if this, I also want to ask a question, which I know has been asked before, and Boundless Millennial comes to mind. If Karen Reed were a man and John O'Keefe were a woman, and a male Karen Reed had tried to start an innocence fraud campaign like this, would it have caught fire the way it had? Would people be jumping with the same kind of text messages, with the same kind of background, someone who goes into someone's house and never talks to the family again, says, I'm so glad I never have to talk to, I never want to talk to the O'Keefes again, and strangely never does, never consoles the children, walks out of the house like nothing happened. If a man did that and deleted Ring camera video that may or may not have been incriminating, we'll never know. But it certainly sounds by the people who were there. And it's like, this wasn't checking out the taillight. Would she have the support, or would he have the support? I don't think so. And would the press be jumping on it and backing her? And would he have a Netflix special, or would everybody be like, oh yeah, another DV situation that ends tragically? Seen it before. Not saying that Karen Reed's the first woman to have done this. I'm just saying it's much more common that a man does this. People be like, yeah, that's the way it ends up. You used his car as a weapon. Yeah. Then pretended he was going to end it all so he didn't have to talk to police, and he covered himself. Strangely was hysterical, never called 911. Wow, that's sus. Never talked to the family. Wow, that's suspect. What is this? What is this? Is it that we can't believe that a police officer would be in this situation? Is it can't believe a man would be in this situation? Because certainly Karen Reed wasn't over, she doesn't overwhelm you with her empathy and her emotions in court. I mean, she looked every day after she walked out of court like she was the star of her own movie. And where are the men's rights people, right? Where are the people who are always talking about how women get off in our justice system and have it so easy? I mean, I don't think she hasn't gotten off anything. In fact, like I've said before, the Commonwealth is in a very good position in retrial. Statistically, retrials benefit the Commonwealth. Will we see some kind of plea deal on Monday? I don't think so. I think Karen Read will never. It's easy for her to raise money. Her fans are just throwing money at her every which way for her defense. So it's not going to cost her anything to retry it. And she seems to love to be in court. I don't think she'll ever admit this. I think she'll go down saying she didn't do this, even if she's convicted. She's going to talk about her wrongful conviction and how the state had no evidence and weak evidence. It was 8 weeks of weak evidence, no evidence. So that's what I have for today. Please hit the like, subscribe to this episode. I'm going to end this episode the way I sometimes do, with my hit song for Karen Read. Hold on one second. I had so much stuff to line up, guys. I hit my boyfriend with my car. And I'll see you back here tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm also going to be covering Karen Read's hearing while keeping an eye on Donna Adelson's hearing. Everything's happening all at once, but should be live streaming it Monday at 2 p.m. So I'll see you guys tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night, everybody.
I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, gin, like John, you were my mom. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet. I hit my boyfriend with my car. It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment, I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system a clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Carry, gin, like John, you were my mark. My innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet. Fraud campaign is my biggest hit yet.